Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
And welcome back to America's Heroes Group. This time we have a Roundtable Veterans Court brought to you by Judge Hooks with attorney Lori Roper and attorney Brian Scanlon. Brian Scanlon's not here with us today. April is Sexual Assault and Autism Awareness Month. Today is Saturday, April 23rd, 2022. Our host is Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honors Production. And we have a great partner here with us today, back again, Miss Lori Roper. She's a Cook County Attorney Supervisor for Problems in the Cook County Supervisors Board. And we also have Jessica Heise. She is a Community Engagement and Partnership Coordinator at the Jesse Brown Veterans Affairs. So how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. I am so happy to be here. I'm happy to have Jessica here. As you said, she is involved at the VA with a lot of our clients and people who are at this point. Let's consider the fact we were in a pandemic and so many people were having issues. But Ms. Heise has taken the bull by the horns, and she is here to give us some information that can possibly help some of our listeners.
So, Jessica, you have done a lot of treatment for veterans suffering from trauma, and also one of the things you specialize in is suicide prevention. That's a big thing that you work on a daily basis. And we talk a lot on this program about ways we can help veterans, and also what is important to veterans that they should know that there is help and resources out there. What can you tell us about the work that you do every day, and then also give us an insight as to what that process is like?
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you so much. It's an honor to be invited here, and so thanks a lot, and thanks, Lori, for that nice introduction. And yeah, my name's Jess, and I work in suicide prevention on a daily basis. But before I dive into my program, I just want to let people know if they have any questions about how to enroll in services with Jesse Brown VA or questions about eligibility, they should call 312-569-8387. That number is 312-569-8387. That is our main number, and you can get a hold of any of the departments from that number. But I work in suicide prevention, as you mentioned, and I work on a new side of suicide prevention. So the VA has deployed community engagement and partnerships coordinators like me in VA medical centers across the U.S. and its territories. You might be aware already that the VA employs suicide prevention coordinators, and those are like the frontline folks. Those are the mental health support for our veterans in need and crisis. But what VA has realized is that we need to embrace this public health approach, because we can't do this alone. No one system can prevent suicide, just like there's no one cause for suicide. Mm-hmm. And about half the veterans in the U.S. aren't receiving care or benefits from the VA, so we're reaching out into the community like we never have before and forming really strong partnerships to reach those veterans, including those who may never come to VA for care. So what I'm doing now is working with several groups in the Chicago area, and we operate under a framework that has 3 priority areas. And those priority areas are, number one, we want to identify service members, veterans, and their families so that we can screen for suicide risk. Remember that if they aren't coming to VA, we need to reach them where they are. And how do we do that? We do that by asking the question, have you ever served in the armed forces? And we want to get that integrated into as many intake forms in community health care, community wellness settings as we can, keeping in mind that also we have to be sensitive with our language. Some folks don't identify as a veteran. So using a term like served in the military or armed forces is important there. And we know that increased suicide risk screening in healthcare settings allows professionals to recognize and then prevent self-harm. Priority area 2 is promote connectedness and improve care transitions. And we all know the past couple of years has been brutal. We lost our social connectedness. A lot of us lost our jobs, our loved ones, and even like our sense of purpose. And so giving someone a sense of purpose is a great protective factor against suicide, and connection to others is as well. And the third and final priority area that we operate under is lethal means safety, increasing lethal means safety, and safety planning. And the bottom line is that restricting access to lethal means during a period of crisis makes it more likely that that person will delay or survive a suicide.
Wow, that's really
And
interesting.
we're doing really neat stuff in the community around all of that.
Yeah. So you mentioned that third step is when you're. And I've heard this a lot, and you've even seen you've got public service announcements out there on TV talking about, how if you can put a lock on your gun, if you have a handgun, things like that can make a big difference in a person going through with the act of suicide versus not doing that. Is suicide or the act of suicide, is it more of a spur of the moment, or not to a spur of the moment because you've been meditating on it for a while, but is it like a reactive or like an impulse movement, or is it something that is it more of like a slow burn where you're like, oh my God, I just got to stop this?
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. Research shows that about 71% of suicide attempts occur within an hour of the thought. So if we can reach a person and distract them or help lift their spirits within that time frame, we can do a great deal in terms of saving lives. There are people who, are suffering for a long time and aren't aware of the resources that are out there, and that's why we're doing what we're doing in the community. I'm a part of suicide prevention coalition called Southside Strong, and we're geared toward BIPOC and women, veterans, and service members, primarily Southland area, but all over really Cook County. And we're doing really cool stuff like providing free suicide prevention gatekeeper trainings to the community and professionals. We are creating podcast content to get the word out, just things that I just spoke about. And we're also hoping to partner with local hair schools and barber shops to do safe talk trainings. And that's for the layperson. That's for anybody to get comfortable talking about mental health and suicide. It's a very uncomfortable and heavy topic. So we want to make sure that people who are integrated in the community, and I don't know about you, but when I get my hair done, I'm there for a long time, and my hairstylist knows my whole life story.
I think in your
So
photo
it's
you look
important
blonde
to
in
get
the photo.
people. Yeah, exactly. See what I'm saying? Exactly. So those are the types of moves we're making in the community to get the word out. And another is a lockbox packing event, and that's where loved ones and service members and veterans could come and place photographs, anything sentimental, mementos, your uncle's watch, whatever it may be, into that lockbox with the firearm, so that it puts a pause between the thought and pulling the trigger.
What do you know?
wow.
What the differences are? Because when we talk about veterans who commit suicide, but there's probably the evidence shows a much larger number of people that are veterans and service members, and even people that did suffer from any kind of trauma that act out or perpetrate violent acts against other people around them, whether it's spousal abuse, whether it's body mutilation on themselves, whether they're abusing their children, or just acting out in violence in public, and those people end up in the court system a lot of times. Is there what separates that person that wants to harm themselves versus a person who wants to go out and harm other people, or is there a difference psychologically?
That's a really packed question, and that would take the whole half hour on its own. But I do want to address a couple points. One is that when someone's suffering inside, you're going to see it on the outside. And that can look a lot of different ways, and that's why we have built out our justice program in such a way, and we're partnering with a lot of community organizations to create reinforcements for those veterans who are going through that. And when you talk about suicide risk screening, embedded in those questions, you're also asking, are you having thoughts about hurting other people? And you can get into depth about that as well.
Does it normally start first where is a person predisposed to this? Be okay, I'm a type of person that's going to go inward to hurt myself, versus someone who's more outward that hurt other people? Is that a preset?
I don't think so. There's biological factors at play, but there's also environmental factors. What I like to say is that we all have our limit. I'm somebody who knows that firsthand. Suicide is part of my lived experience. Fortunately, I haven't gone after other folks, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that when we all have a mode we can enter when we are pushed to our limit, and it's almost like a perfect storm. A number of situations, interactions, you get fired from a job, you lose your house, you get that flat tire, and that's the last thing. You know what I mean, to set someone off. So we want to make sure by working with our community partners that we really create a safety net for those service members and veterans. They don't have to feel alone. They don't have to feel afraid to reach out.
Now, Laura, in your experience working in the legal system, what trends do you notice when it comes to people that commit crimes, veterans in particular, who really just need help, just need some way to get some counseling or some trauma counseling? What are the common trends or common characteristics you notice in their behavior, especially the red flags, but prior to them committing the act, ending up in the legal system?
Well, the one thing that I can say, and I'm really just kind of focusing on perhaps people who may have drug issues. A lot of times, you know, what they're doing is they're seeking narcotics, they're seeking drugs. They may be going to the hospital to get painkillers, or they may even start doing small burglaries, nothing serious, just, you know, breaking into the local auto store near them and stealing a couple of mufflers to, you know. So those kind of things usually let us know when they come into the system that that's drug-seeking behavior. They're trying to get money so they can buy drugs. So, of course, no one wants their home, I mean, particularly a home, but like a business broken into. But that gives us the clue that this person may need services for drugs. So, but I can imagine in terms of mental health, almost similar in that they may act out, or the family may have some kind of indication something's going on. But remember, you know, there's such a stigma behind mental health, and particularly in the Black community, that a lot of times it gets overlooked, or, you know, we deal with things in a different way. And so I'm really excited about what Jessica said. I'm thinking about the fact that they are trying to partner with groups in our communities, because treatment for drugs or mental health is more likely to work if you're with people that's familiar to you in your area, particularly because, again, of course they can go to the VA, but that may not necessarily resonate with them because they may not feel any connection with anyone there. But perhaps if it's someone in their neighborhood or some place in their neighborhood, perhaps they're having a meeting at the local church, or as Jessica said, they're going to the barber shop and the barber's talking to them, or there's a presentation in the barber shop or the beauty shop, that may trigger a person to try to seek help. So, you know, I'm really excited about that. I really feel that is so key in trying to catch people before they do something harmful to themselves.
And Jessica, so you do some things with yoga.
Yeah, I'm a registered yoga teacher in my other life.
So you use that. So you took classes, or you use that to actually give people treatment. So how does that reframe the brain or reframe the mind so that people can, you know, feel better or try to overcome some of their challenges?
So in my role with the VA and with suicide prevention at the VA, I actually don't have any clinical duties. I'm not treating veterans one-on-one in that capacity any longer. I did come from a clinical background, though, where I worked in the ER and the psychiatric assessment clinic and the homeless program. But I can tell you that when folks experience trauma, their fight or flight is activated, and you can be hypervigilant. You can feel very easily irritated. Sometimes anxiety shows up as irritation or violence, like you're talking about. And there are ways to stimulate the vagus nerve, and then that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, allows your body to register, look, there's no harm or threat here. I'm able to calm down. And we do that in a variety of ways in yoga with using breath. Breath is one of the easiest hacks into your autonomic system. It's just like tapping into the mainframe of your body.
You said breath, you said?
Breath work, yes.
Okay, yeah. So
there's a lot of breath work in yoga.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So now you hinted that that you had some personal experience with these issues we're talking about. Did you want to talk about that part of it?
Sure. I don't mind. I think that is part of reducing the stigma around mental health and talking about it too. You know, I am a civilian, but I come from, you know, I'm a behavioral health professional. And so I understand the idea of you have to be strong. You're the one supporting others. You can't reach out for help, you know. And even though I had all the resources at my fingertips, it was really difficult to reach out for help from me. And so coming from that perspective, I want to make it as low barrier as possible, as easy as possible, where it doesn't have to be this big, heavy, serious conversation. That's why we're working with faith-based organizations, you know, like we said, hopefully barbershops and beauty schools. And by the way, if you're listening and that's you're one of those folks that works in a barbershop or owns one or has a beauty school, you know, reach out to me because we're looking to partner in that way. But anyway, another group that I'm working with that focuses on Latino service members and veterans is called Veteranos Combatiendo el Suicidio. And we are starting weekly coffee socials. So it's just 2 hours where people can come and connect with other veterans, have a cup of coffee, have some pastries if they're donated there that week. And we're doing this at the Blue Door Neighborhood Center over on Cermak by Rockwell, right next to the Walmart. And it's cool because that space is beautiful, it's new, and there's a spot for kids to play. So that's low barrier too. You know, if you have children that you don't have childcare, there's like a book corner and toys. And so we want to make it as accessible to talk about what's really going on as possible.
Then Jessica, one more time before we go, make sure you give us that phone number you mentioned before, and then also your social media information so we can connect with you.
Oh, and
sure.
Jessica, I'm sorry, Jessica. Don't you have some information regarding a grant or something for other organizations that? Oh, so why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is pretty important. Good call, Lori. So, under the Staff Sergeant Fox Suicide Prevention Grant Program, Congress has allocated $174 million to go out over the course of this 3-year program, and organizations can apply for this grant worth up to $750,000 per year, and they can apply to renew the award from year to year throughout the length of the program. So eligible entities are generally incorporated or nonprofit private institutions, foundations with a governing board, a corporation that's wholly owned or controlled by a nonprofit organization with a governing board, Indian tribes, community-based organizations that can network with local civic organizations, regional healthcare systems, and other settings where eligible individuals and their families are likely to have contact. And also state and local governments can apply too. And eligible individuals would be veterans under Title 38, former service members who were discharged from the armed forces, and that's under conditions that were not honorable, but also not dishonorable or by court-martial at this time, and certain veterans and members of the armed forces that are eligible for readjustment counseling services from VA. So this is a grant that allows community partners to provide suicide prevention services to eligible veterans, service members, and their families. And I can give you the long website, but your best bet is to Google SSG Fox Suicide Prevention Grant, and you'll come up with it. You'll find it. And I would say, let's see, the notice of funding opportunity was issued on the 15th, and the deadline to apply is June 10th.
June 10th, okay. And that's SSG.
I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, so SSG, Suicide Prevention. That's how you guys are confirmed.
SSG Fox.
SSG Fox, Suicide Prevention. To Google that, and I can pull up that information for that grant. And then also, what is your contact information, social media information, so on?
Okay, so the best way to contact me is via email. But you can reach me at jessica.heise, that's HEISE, at va.gov. And that's Jessica, JESSICA, Heise, HEISE, at va.gov. Again, the general number for Jesse Brown VA is 312-569-8387.
Excellent. I appreciate that, because that's something that we really need to hear about, especially organizations that are out there trying to provide help for something serious topic. Because this is something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. I appreciate you for sharing your experiences and your story. When was it how did that boulder start to lift off of your shoulders? Was it something that happened was there a particular moment where it just where you felt like a lift had just occurred, or was it like a slow, gradual process that one day you just realized it was gone, or was not there as heavy as it was before?
Well, actually, it was a friend. I called a friend in my moment of crisis, and she was there. She actually picked up the phone. And that's how I know. I didn't reach out to my therapist. I didn't reach out to my doctor. I reached out to somebody in my community who I trusted and who was close to me. And through that, I was able to see that, I'm not alone. There's a lot of people that go through this and that have that suicidal mode. Everyone can reach it. And luckily, I'm here today to talk about it. A lot of other people aren't. Suicide is a national issue, and so it affects both veteran and civilian populations. It's heartbreaking to think about, but for every suicide death, it's estimated that 135 other lives are affected. So if we can create a network in working with these coalitions and task forces and community organizations, we can create a safety net. And think of me, I'm like a common thread. So I have the gift of time. When I'm working with these community partners, what I notice mostly is they're busy. They're running their organizations. They're serving veterans face to face. They often have families and other full-time jobs that they're juggling too. And that this is my full-time job, is to help support and facilitate suicide prevention efforts at the community level, so that no service member, no family, no veteran feels left alone.
So piggyback on that last question. So is suicide thought, or a thought of suicide ideation, is that something that is always present for a lot of people, or is it something that you manage, or is it something that you can overcome, or is it all three for different people?
All three. It's all three. It's an individual basis. Yeah.
Okay. Is there how do you get to be that person who overcomes it?
Well, it varies from person to person. I would say you want to promote the protective factors of connectedness to others, feeling a sense of purpose, a lot of times creating a routine, having social outlets, places to go, people that you trust, seeking help with a doctor, a therapist. A lot of times the VA is also building out peer support services on a whole next level. It's never been like this before, which is great for folks who don't need or are afraid to approach intensive therapy, but they're willing to do other things like non-traditional therapies, equine therapy, archery, gardening. We have a gardening group at the VA. And like I mentioned, coffee socials and things of that nature.
I want to see more yoga in the VA.
Find your tribe. That's what I would say.
So you think you can bring yoga back to the VA, or are they doing yoga anymore?
Right now, you know what? I don't know, but I can get back to you. I'm not sure if they're doing the face-to-face for patients right now.
Okay. So hopefully they can bring back yoga. That's what I want to see.
With the pandemic, things are kind of up in the air still.
Yeah. So Lori, what can you tell us more about, as far as in a legal perspective, what improvements and what things have you seen that's positive around suicide prevention, and also not just veterans that are in the legal system, court system, trying to overcome petty theft, petty crime, things like that, but what positive results have you seen lately?
Well, quite honestly, we don't measure, or we don't look at it in that way. So I wouldn't have a great answer for you, but again, partnering with people like Jessica, who can give us information about what to really look for. Because again, I can honestly say I've never had a service member or a veteran mention or say anything about suicide. Like, we've not had that, and it just may be that they may not feel comfortable mentioning that to any of us in court. But those same people are already connected to the VA. So they may very well have a therapist that they're talking to about that issue, if that's their issue. So I won't have a great answer for you, because that may be something that is totally discussed with their therapist.
Okay. So, and then Jess, what success story could you share? Like, what moment besides your own, which is a huge success story in my opinion? So, I mean, I think your story is very, very powerful and also very, very profound, because it gives people an idea about what is possible, what can be done. Because you're out there, it's something you've gone through, but now you're going out and helping other people, and that's something that I salute you for doing that, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing that. From your experiences of helping other veterans, helping other people in your time, can you tell us a story that might give us hope, and also some insight, some of the success and some of the positive things that's possible when you come forward and say, hey, I need help?
Yeah, I can tell you that, I was working in the psychiatric assessment clinic, and I was calling to make appointments for people. And this is a little bit specific because the person was on the list for mental health treatment anyhow. But, it wasn't that he was flagged for suicide risk. It wasn't that he had a long history of suicide attempts or anything like that. But I would say really listening to folks when they're talking, recognizing the signs of emotional distress and the language they use, like things are beyond my control, no one cares, I can't see a way out, and even their tone of voice. So I contacted this veteran, and something just didn't sound right. I mean, something that just didn't sound right. And I kept reaching out to him, and eventually was able to get him into treatment, and he ended up in the ER and then in inpatient care. And the next time that I spoke to him after he was discharged, he said, you saved my life.
Wow.
You saved my life. I had my clothes laid out on my bed for my funeral, and you saved my life. And now I feel like I'm beyond that moment, and I feel like there's a reason to live. And so it's about taking time. We're all so busy, we're all rushing around. We really need to take the time to recognize how someone's presenting. If things are different, if they're all of a sudden switching back and forth between positive emotional content and negative, if they're, talking a lot about drugs and alcohol, for instance, if they're talking a lot about their weapons, or posting pictures on social media, things like that, but not of their friends or their pets or their family. And that's a signal that we can reach in. People don't always have to reach out. We need to be aware.
On that note, Jessica, I really appreciate your time. Jessica Heise, Lori Roper, thank you for your time and also for your participation. And we got to get you back on the show soon. America's Heroes Group, we'll be right back.